Welcome back to Hannity. Ever since the brutal assassination of two NYPD officers last month, New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio has been scrambling to voice his support for the New York City Police Department, or at least pretend he feels it. Well, many of the men and women in uniform have been rejecting de Blasio's peace offerings, and on several recent occasions, they have booed him or turned their backs on him like they did at the funeral of slain Officer Rafael Ramos last weekend. Now, one NYPD union leader has urged his members not to turn their backs on the mayor at Sunday's funeral for slain Officer Liu. Here with their takes on the growing rift between the police department and City Hall is former NYPD Detective Pat Brosnan and former NYPD Commissioner Bernard Carrick. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.
So, Commissioner Carrick, what side of this are you on? I mean, you've been through the ranks, you've run the place. Is the average rank-and-file NYPD officer right to turn his back on the mayor?
Look, I understand their anger, they're upset. They have a right, in my opinion, to be extremely upset with the mayor. Me personally, I don't think the funeral is the right place, especially in circumstances where the family may say they'd rather not.
Right.
They don't want to send a political message, whatever the case may be. It's not the place, in my opinion. However, there are going to be times when, they'll have the opportunity to make their upset extremely known.
Yes. So, Pat Brosnan, you were at the funeral
Yes.
for Officer Ramos.
I was.
Officers turned their backs.
Yes. I don't want to say I was the first to turn, but I was in the top 10,000, if I had to speculate.
So I don't even need to ask you what you think of it since you did it.
No.
And why did you do it?
Well, I did it because it's a benign and a harmless and a legal and a constitutionally sound way to demonstrate not only my feelings, but the feelings of the 10,000 that turned, their feelings and their sense of betrayal from a mayor who, through his rhetoric, through his stoking the fires of anti-police hatred, by the way, with a fuel that was baseless and pointless and unfactual.
Yes.
By him doing that, it caused and empowered and emboldened a coward like Ishmael Brinsley to get on a bus, drive up to Brooklyn, broad daylight, kill two guys having a roast beef sandwich in a radio car.
Yeah.
That's why.
And making a racial case out of Eric Garner's death.
Well,
There isn't a shred of evidence.
Well, exactly right. But the
Not one
mayor
shred.
made it a racial thing, and therefore, inspired a lot of anger. So how about the police response, Mr. Carrick? You saw this week it was reported that in the Bedford-Stuyvesant part of Brooklyn where these killings took place, police officers in New York have arrested, I think, one person in the last week. So it's clearly cops have decided we're not going to enforce the law, at least in the way that we did before these killings. Is that legitimate?
No, I honestly, I don't think that's legitimate, and here's why. You know how many cops are in that precinct right now, have been in that precinct over the last week, week and a half, 2 weeks, since the assassination of these cops? That area, that precinct has been flooded with law enforcement. The bad guys, they could have gone elsewhere. Taking that stat, that one stat, and saying the entire police department is in a slow down or work stoppage, I think it's a bit premature to make that.
Okay, so you don't think, do you think that's going on? We have heard some, and not by name, but on background in press accounts, cops saying we're going to stop enforcing the law because we're so upset with the leadership of the mayor.
I don't believe it. I concur with Commissioner Carrick, particularly to the extent that he well knows that the deferral of over 50,000 tours to man this so-called demonstrations that have been going on since the release of the No True Bill and Michael Brown has basically diverted a tremendous amount of resources and manpower. I mean, sometimes 2,000 a day. And basically, the following numbers as it relates to criminal court summonses, Department of Motor Vehicle summonses, and arrests have been diminished as a result of those tours. And by the way, as a direct result of the perpetuation of the big lie. So it all comes around full circle. That's why there's no concerted effort. There's no concerted slowdown. It's really a manifestation of the diversion.
Good, because, I mean, the great concern that undergirds all of this is that New York City will return to what it was 20 years ago, a little more than 20 years ago. It was one of the most dangerous places in the country, and that had huge ramifications for everybody. Do you see the city moving back to that?
I think if the mayor continues the leadership he's exhibited so far, is that possible? Could be possible. You know, I've known Patty, I don't want to say 30 years.
Long time.
A long time. He was one of the most aggressive cops in the Bronx at the time. I can tell you, when you don't have he can tell you, when you don't have the support of the mayor, when you don't think you're going to be indemnified legally by the city police department or by the city of New York, you're not going to be as aggressive to go out there hunting for the bad guy, hunting for the guns, doing the things that they normally do. Are they going to respond to calls for help? Absolutely. Are they going to do their jobs? Absolutely. But are they going to go a step and above and beyond what they normally would? I don't know. They're going to be very careful.
Guess who gets shafted in that? Above all is poor people living in dangerous areas who obviously are the first ones to be affected when the crime rate spikes.
Patty and I lived through that in the crime reduction days.
Yeah.
You know, people forget when, you know, people in women in the minority communities put their babies in the bathtubs to keep them safe from gunfire. There's been an 85% reduction in homicides and violent crime in those minority communities. They were the greatest benefactors from the crime reduction. This guy was one of the cops out there doing it. So we know pretty well what it was like, what it's like today, and what people don't want to go back to.
Of course. And, I mean, since you've been here, you guys both been here the whole time, how does it make you feel to see Mayor de Blasio invite into Gracie Mansion Al Sharpton? Who
It's sickening. And the reality is that he has learned in recent weeks that rhetoric, irresponsible rhetoric, has very serious, in this case, deadly consequences. What he did was he dehumanized the police. His cauldron of burning police hatred, the fuel he threw on it, which were baseless facts, basically emboldened individuals who were bent on causing crimes, committing crimes, and it disempowered and it declawed the finest police department in the world. And that's horrible, horrible thing to do. And it disgusts me what occurred. And it's horrible. And the irony is that the people who are going to pay for that, as Commissioner Kerrick, who's also was very, very aggressive as a detective, and I know him a long time, those are the individuals in the inner city. The people, the good people. I worked in the South Bronx for 14 years in the most dangerous square mile in America. And the fact is, there was thousands and thousands of people who came home after working a hard day, got off the 4 train, went to the apartment, locked the 7 locks, put the police bar on, and they were in for the night. I mean, and that's the reality of it. And those are the people who are being sanctioned, who are being penalized for this outset and this effect.
So, really quickly, how long can Bratton stay?
Hopefully, he stays.
Yeah,
hopefully. I don't know how. He is going to be the catalyst to get through this, I think. I don't think the mayor can do it on his own. I think Bratton's going to be the catalyst to help us get through it.
Say a prayer. Gentlemen, thanks a lot for coming on. That was
absolutely.
Really
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.